The blue economy is defined as a sustainable ocean-based economy comprising of a range of economic sectors and related policies that aims to foster economic and social progress while maintaining the health of our oceans and coasts. Within that broad definition, conservation organizations have carved out innovative ways to maintain the health of our seas and coasts. As the co-manager of the Blue Hole and Half Moon Cay Natural Monuments, the Belize Audubon Society views fishers as important stakeholders within the Lighthouse Reef Atoll. According to Lucita Ayuso, Audubon's community liaison officer, initially, the organization would visit villages such as Sartaneja, Chinooks, and Copperbank, but the fishers were rarely at home. This resulted in the organizations developing boat-to-boat interactions with fishers.
We do this every year, the boat-to-boat, where we come to you during the opening and for the conchs and lobster. This time is for the lobster, no? We wish you the best for this lobster season. How was the lobster season last year?
It was okay, but the weather not give the time for work.
What's the carapace, the minimum carapace length that you should fish? El carapacho, ¿qué es el mínimo del lobster? ¿Qué es el tamaño mínimo que debe de tener?
3 inches, I think.
3 inches, very good. Good man, you know your stuff. What about the tail weight, el peso de la cola?
Four.
The idea of the boat-to-boat came back in 2012 when we had a Jeff-funded project. Prior to the inception of the boat-to-boat strategy, we had community meetings, but we never got our direct stakeholders engaged in those meetings. Who we got are the wives and the children of the direct stakeholders with whom we want to meet, who are the fishermen. So the idea came between the community liaison manager and the then protected areas manager of meeting the fisher folks in their turf where they fish. So in December 2012, we embarked into the trying out the strategy when during a Christmas time. We thought about taking grapes and an ice cold Coke to them as we engage in discussions. When we started the initiative, and the very first time we went out at sea to meet them, it was not an easy task to build relationship with them, since they saw that the organization, as an antagonist, going into their turf, interfering with their fishing practices.
The perception has changed, and fishers look forward to the occasional and informational sessions by the organization.
The reason because I chose Half Moon Cay is because right here we got the lobster more bigger than Turnip, and it's more, how I could tell you, more easy to come and have a nice diving because nobody molests us out like in Turnip. Well, up to now, Belize Audubon is working good with the fishermen because every opening they come with the boats and the skiff and they ask how is going the open season and what you need, and if you need more rangers to circle the area. The part that I love it is because they bring some chips and some soft drink.
Strategy engages fisher folks one-on-one in their fishing vessels. Through the strategy, fisher folks are given the opportunity to voice their opinions, suggestions with regard to sustainable fishing practices at Blue Hole Natural Monument and Lighthouse Reef Atoll. The strategy is also used to promote the Belize Audubon Society's conservation work. Fishermen are sensitized about single-use plastics and its mitigation efforts to the marine environment. Fisher folks are also sensitized about stony coral tissue loss disease and its mitigation efforts. Through the strategy, fisher folks also learn about the importance of grazers to the marine environment. The strategy becomes more innovative when fisher folks provide intelligence for a more strategic surveillance and enforcement exercise at the atoll.
And as a pioneer, other NGOs, conservation organizations have adopted it, right?
Since then, other organizations get interested in trying out the strategy. We have even mentored other NGOs, and they willingly are using the tool, the innovative strategy till today. And I know that other NGOs are using it also.
The barrier reef and the diving experiences draw thousands of tourists to popular dive sites every year and provides income to many. But coral reef structures are affected by disease and climate change. Fragments of Hope has been innovative by replanting corals to replenish areas that need new growth. The organization's founder, Lisa Karn, says they have been growing elk horn corals that are not affected by stony coral tissue loss disease, and these should help with shoreline protection. In South Silk Keys, the organization collected corals from a nursery site and then cuts them with a wet tile saw. After cutting with the saw, the coral microfragments are replanted with cement.
Previously, we would take small pieces of the elkhorn coral from wild colonies and place them in a coral nursery for 1 to 2 years to grow big enough to then put them out on the reef. And in 2017, we adapted and changed that with Dr. David Vaughan, who really came up with or coined the microfragmenting technique. And he and others, most others, use it for land-based nurseries. And the principle behind it for any coral species is that when you make a cut or a lesion, it's, the analogy is like if you make a cut on your skin, it forces the skin cells to grow back faster. So by cutting the coral quite small, it actually forces it to grow faster than it would if you didn't touch it at all, if that makes sense. And so David Vaughan, Dr. David Vaughan, and most others are using it in controlled land-based nurseries in what they call raceways or tanks or aquarium, and they cut the corals very, very small. So the value of that is if you don't have much of a coral to start with, you can make lots of little pieces that will then grow up into more. We're not in that situation. Here in Belize, we prefer to use the sea as our laboratory. We have so much corals and reefs still living here. And so we have, all of our nurseries are based in the ocean. And so what we did is modify this method to use it for directly in water purposes. So with the elkhorn coral now, we have bypassed the nursery time completely. So we can take either from a nursery where we've grown it already or from the wild where we never take more than 10% of the coral. We bring it to shore or on a boat where we can set up the saw, and we cut them into about 5-centimeter pieces, and then we outplant them on the reef. And we often plant like 2 or 3 little pieces together, and then they grow up into a colony, and they make a nice little colony, and they're doing really well. So our oldest ones are at Saltwater Key 4 Reef, and they turned 5 this year. I think we did it 2017. I have to do the math. I think they turned 5 in April. And the other exciting news about this innovation, it is an innovation because we adapted someone else's methods for our work in Belize. And it's innovative because we're cutting out some of the middle parts so we can restore more areas quicker. And what's important to realize is that we've focused always on the shallow reefs in Belize with our work. Fragments of Hope has always focused on the shallow reef. Why? That's where the shoreline protection comes from. So it's that top meter of reef that breaks up, over 80% of the wave energy. So if you're talking about shoreline protection, you have to have a living reef in order to withstand, the incoming waves and the sea and everything. If you put rocks and just cement, that will erode over time. I don't care how strong you build it, the ocean will win, right? So it really needs to be a living reef to break up that wave energy and protect the shoreline for the future. So what we've been doing is reskinning, what we call reskinning or resheeting the shallow reefs with this species. And the exciting news for us was last year at Laughingbird Key, some 4-year-old microfragments that were little tiny pieces when we put them out turned into these little coral colonies now, and they spawned last year, which means they're sexually reproductive. This is exciting news for us because it means that within just 4 years, we can create a self-replicating, self-reproducing, living, functional reef. So we're really thrilled with that, and we hope to expand our efforts. We've done this technique everywhere now. We've done it in Key Cocker, we've done it in Turnef, Atoll. We've done it in Saltwater, Tobacco, out here at Silks, at Moho Key, Laughing Bird, and everywhere we've done it, Fore Reef, Back Reef, Fringing Reef, it's working really well.
What we normally do is we take different fragments from healthy corals. Depending on what we're doing, we either set them on a table, ropes and a string, let them grow, and we use them for coral restoration around the area. So what we do is we select a specific location. We look for substrates. Using a steel brush, we actually scrub, make sure that there's no algae, or remove as much algae as possible. And we place puddles of cement. Once the cement is getting somewhat hard, we start to put the fragments on them.
Laughing Bird Key is now internationally known. It's actually recognized internationally as sort of a star restoration site. Why? Because we have the longest data set, the most coral coverage, we have the quantification methods to back it up. The results are there. We're not just talking about something in theory, right?
The Toledo Institute for Development and Environment, TIDE, has been innovative with the use of technology by utilizing aerial and aquatic drones that dive to depths of 100 feet. They have been used as part of its patrols, monitoring, and enforcement activities within the Port Honduras Marine Reserve. Ryan Moore, TIDE's Marine Protected Areas Manager, believes the technology will continue to be essential to conservation organizations.
It had to be able to maneuver more freely while underwater, in the sense of like a scuba diver, being able to hold in place, rotate 360, and likewise being able to look up and down for it to be useful. And so in 2022, courtesy of a Belize Marine Fund project, we were able to acquire our second underwater drone, which had those features that we were looking for. And so this drone now is primarily used as a part of that project to modernize or increase the use of technology in enforcement. And so that is also has a secondary component, which is the enforcement strategy. We tend to refer to it as a hybrid enforcement strategy, because it has aspects of the old methodology of using enforcement, which is standard within all the other enforcement strategies. But this one now will include the aspects of the new technologies, such as the aerial drones and the underwater drones. We would launch the use of our drones, which started with the drone that could land on water. And now we have the access to drones which have increased range. And so we would launch from while we take off at the quay to give a first look at where potential vessels are located. But we would still go on patrol, and we would have the drone up in the air as well, because these drones now have increased range of like up to 40 minutes of flying time. And so we would be on patrol and the drone would be flying as well. So that, we don't have to deploy all the time. It's already launched in the air. And it just increases our understanding, and so we could use less fuel.
Everybody has to adapt. And at the end of the day, the technology is very beneficial for us, because then the drone, the aerial drone, it helps to, go up, and then you see a more bigger area where you want to cover. It avoids going to different areas, just to check if a vessel is there.
A lot of people coming in from the neighboring countries who come take the fish, actually take the product where we make, And if you notice, the weather kind of bad, so I know a lot of fish again, like back then in the days, they use a lot of net and a lot of different things too, so it kind of hard, keep up with them. So if you notice, a lot of trap too.
Too much trap.
Yeah.
Too much.
A lot of trap, like
People,
extremely too much. If you notice over that side,
right.
If you go fishing over that side,
Nothing.
no fish. Because too much trap.
I
Even
think
when I throw my line, sometimes I catch 2 or 3 times, I haul up trap already with my line. So I believe they have a lot of trap.
Too much
And
trap.
over this side, when leave it, they catch over this side, but the weather kind of.
One person, they have too much trap.
one person.
Yeah,
They need regulate it, but
everybody need to eat, you
in
know?
this area they have was 5 person to strap. I not tell lie.
They have, different type of activities that we try or we want to explore. We can do habitat mapping. We can do fish ID. You can do coral as well. We know that they are using the gillnets more in the deep now. We have seen that even along the coastline, these guys are using, they're sinking the entire net. So, it is a possibility of, using the gillnet, the drone near the coastline to search for gillnets as well.
We will be documenting with the underwater drone how many of those types of fishing equipment are present within the reserve. Of course, we will be actively seeking gillnets because in the past couple of years, we started to see the use of gillnets being submerged. And when they submerge it, they would bring up like lobsters within the gillnets. Overall, the use of all of these technologies is all to reduce the gaps within our standard efforts.
Conservation work in the blue economy is not only the responsibility of organizations such as Tide, Fragments of Hope, or the Belize Audubon Society. It is also your responsibility at home. To learn more about our regulations, Jose Sanchez reporting.